It's not long. Like, it's not a particularly, content heavy game. I think the middle section of the game is maybe buffeted out a little bit by a few fetch quests and some bits and pieces that you can do for some NPCs in the game, even though every NPC in the game is essentially a machine. But it is a good game. I didn't want to talk about it also while, like, in the early days of your cat not being very well, Mark.
Honestly, there was a period of time where I was thinking, I'm not actually going to play this game this year. That was a genuine thought of mine at one point.
Yeah, like Stray came out and I'd played maybe an hour of it or something, and that was the week when you were like, oh, my cat's really sick. I was like, oh, fuck, I can't talk about Stray.
Literally same thing. I played 2 hours of this, but I was like, I can't talk about it, Mark. No, what's that, Mark?
Yeah, but now, as we've heard earlier, that Mark's cat's doing okay. Yeah, I really like Stray. I think how people feel about it kind of depends on their expectations from what we saw going into it. So we didn't really get a lot. We just got a cat kind of in a dystopian future environment, and that is very much the vibe that they're going for, because you start off as a cat, you're in a sort of like overgrown drain pipe. It kind of looks like a little bit of a Last of Us style situation, and you're palling around the 3 other cats. You're running, you're jumping, you're just living that good cat life. You can scratch things. There's a button to just meow, and it's not like the same meow. There's different meows, which I just think, like ever since Untitled Goose Game, if you're going to play the main character as an animal, you need to have a button to make that animal noise, really. I think they've ruined that for everyone.
I do feel like all games now have like an assigned D-pad function that is purely just a kind of joke function at this point, and I'm all for it. Because that D-pad is underused now.
And do you know what I love? Complete sidebar, but whenever we watch the Giant Bomb Mario Party parties, that's like the one button you can press. I think it's like the L trigger button on the N64. Yeah, to make the character noises, and I always used to do that just to be an absolute gobshite as well, which is the most like Dan Reichert I've ever felt in my life. And then you get isolated from your cat pals. They sort of look over the edge because you kind of fall off a thing and then just sort of carry on, which kind of sums up the general attitude of cats, I would say, really. Like, oh, shit, something bad really. Anyway, like, what about me? How am I doing? And then, you fall into this abandoned city, and it's kind of a cool, creepy environment. You can run along pipes and rooftops and ledges, and you kind of sneaking through, and then you make your way into an apartment and you find a little drone pal, and the little drone pal helps guide you through the world. You can communicate with like other robots, and you can find bits and pieces of memories that kind of link back into things that's happened in the drone pal's life when he was more interactive with other humans, and you sort of gradually spend most of the game figuring out a way to escape the city. And there are lots of other types of like robots and machines in there, and like a weird like cultish robot thing like running the city. And like, without giving too much away, it's a nice little contained package. There are fun little fetch side quests that you can do, which don't really take too much time and add a little bit of color into the story. I really enjoyed the musical one, for instance. You like find bits of music that you can give to this robot, like, and he'll play them back. It's nothing like finding tapes in Metal Gear Solid 5 with like 80s hits on them. Like, I can't be riding around on a horse while listening to Kids in America in this game, unfortunately. But it's just it's just a lot of fun. The only thing I would say about it, and like, I know I'm a cat, right? I know I'm a cat.
Thanks for declaring that.
I get that. But there's just an inch of personality that the cat doesn't have that kind of makes me feel a little bit sad. Like, it's obviously gone for like a more realistic thing, but anyone that's owned a cat or a dog or anything, they all these animals have like these very specific personalities, I would say, right? Every animal you have is different. Like some cats are crazy, some cats are quiet. So, it's same with dogs. I just didn't feel, and again, I know it sounds silly, but I just didn't feel the personality of the cat come through a lot in the game. Like, it did a lot of cute generic cat stuff, which I really enjoyed, but it just didn't have that zing, that little bit of like a USP for the cat, like that made you feel close to it. You're experiencing the game through the eyes of a cat, but I never really felt anything from the cat that made me feel closer to it, other than the fact that it was like quite cute and cool to be playing as it. So is that a weird complaint to have, do you think, or should I just shut the fuck up and enjoy the game where I'm a cat?
Do you think part of that is because the game does introduce you having a little robot companion who then does most of the talking for the rest of the game? Do you think part of it is that they shifted a little too much over to that little robot pal and took away from the cat?
It did a bit, but I like the robot pal because I'm a big kind of sidekick guy in a video game as well, Garrett. I love having your mate will help you out in certain situations. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. And I like the robot. I really like the robot. I just felt like the cat lacked personality, and that's a weird thing to say about a cat, I know. But yeah,
we live in a post-Garfield world, so like I get it.
Yeah, I mean, there was this one bit of the lasagna, but no. It didn't. That's the only thing that didn't really hook me, is that I didn't feel as close to the cat as I wanted to by the end of the game. But it's still a really good game. You can get through it very quickly if you want to. If you do all the side quests and missions, I'd say it's like maybe 10 to 12 hours. But you could probably play through it in like 5 or 6 hours if you wanted to. It's not a super in-depth game. There's maybe like 12 or 13 chapters, and the chapters feel like half hour at most.
What's the world design like? Is it
Cyberpunk?
No, but not in that aspect, but in terms of like, is it kind of like a single line in terms of your exploration going from like room to room, or is it
mixtures,
more kind of open world?
Mixtures, different chapters of the game. Like when you get into the city, mate, like proper, you can explore all around, go down lots of different pathways, alleyways. That's where you find the memories, and ultimately where you come back and you find the different bits of music and stuff. Start of the game is very corridor-esque. It's a bit odd sometimes, because some things you can kind of jump on and run along and jump up and whatever, and then other objects you can't. And you kind of become beholden to the prompt, because you get like the little prompt that comes up on the screen to let you know this is a place that you can go, or a place that you can jump, or an angle that you can reach, versus ones that don't. So that kind of takes a little bit of the free roam element away, because it's always just basically like press to jump, and that's what makes it feel a little bit more corridor-esque. But then once you get into a couple of the environments, you can have a bit more of an explore. So it's a little bit of a mixture. It kind of feels like a tech demo of a game that could have been a lot bigger, I think, and had a lot more interesting bits and pieces in it. But it's made by quite a small studio, isn't it? So
yeah, it's an indie.
It's an indie game, and there's not many games that you can be a cat. So I was just appreciating the opportunity to do that.
I do feel like the reviews of this game have almost been too glowing for its own good, because I think this game got some 10s, and like I like it, but it's not a 10. It's not a 10. It's nowhere in the world of a 10. And I think it's not a 10. If people go into this game thinking like game of the year level, I think they'll be let down, because it's a nice little cat puzzle game. That's ultimately what it is.
Yeah, and I went into it thinking that it could be one of those things, like it could be like the next arty, really awesome, strange, maybe walking simulator-esque game where you go on this weird journey with a cat. But it's not that. Like it's part action adventure, it is part walking sim, it's part RPG elements in a way, because you're kind of like collecting things to improve your robot's memory and stuff like that, and level him up in that way. So there are little bits and like traces of other gameplay styles, but ultimately, yeah, I mean, it's like I'd say it's like an 8 out of 10 rather than a 10 out of 10. Like I did enjoy playing it. There's not a lot of depth to it, but what is in the game is just it's done so artfully. Like it looks beautiful. The design is, like Garrett said, it's cyberpunk but meets kind of Last of Us, like a dystopian future gone wrong kind of element to it, which just looks really, really cool, and they've realized it so well. And like the animations and the movement of the cat I really liked as well. But yeah, there's just something a little bit missing, and it was very difficult for me to put my finger on it. And I think it is just because I I do generally play games and try and associate myself with like the main element or the main character of a game quite a lot, unless I know it's like something like Mario where I'm just trying to do fun shit and have a laugh. Like, I know I'm not an Italian plumber and I never will be, but this is a really good game and I think you'll enjoy it, but I don't know how long this is going to stay with me.
Or stray with you, some might say.
Exactly.
Is there combat in the game?
There's scenarios in which there is enemies, but there's not particularly combat.
So it's more about avoiding the enemies more so than taking them on head first. Right.
And then, I don't want to ruin too much, but like there's like, finding ways of kind of defeating enemies and avoiding enemies and stuff.
Okay. So it's more kind of puzzle based in terms of how you get around them more than the actual combat of it.
Yeah, like there's a lot of different video game elements in here. A lot of interesting ideas. It just could have had a bit more depth and a bit more personality for the cat for me.